Hey, I'm John Cannell, and today on Preppy Kitchen we're making some pillowy soft dinner rolls. So let's get started. First off, I'm gonna measure my flour out. This is actually the most crucial part because if you use too much, your dinner rolls will not be cloudy and soft. They'll be like breadier and disappointing. In total, I want 3.5 cups or 420 grams of all-purpose flour, but I'm dividing this. So in the first bowl, I want 1.5 cups or 180 grams. Perfect. And in the second bowl, 1 3/4 or 210 grams of all-purpose flour. Not perfect, too much. A scale's gonna give you the best result. If you're using a measuring cup, fluff your flour up and then sprinkle it into your measuring cup and level it off. Do not scoop, that's too much. Our flour's measured, so now it's time to grab our stand mixer. So heavy. Now, in the bowl of my stand mixer, I want 1 cup of whole milk, 240 mils, and it should be about 110 degrees, so it's warm but not scalding. If it's an ice cold day, go ahead and warm the bowl up by just running some hot water into it, swirling it around, and throwing it out. If your bowl is too cold, the milk will get cold as well, and your yeast won't be as happy. To puff things up, I want 1 packet of instant yeast. Instant yeast and active yeast look so similar in packaging, and yet they're completely different. Instant yeast works today. If I was doing something like a brioche that needed a ton of rising to fight against all the fats that we're adding to make it delicious, and then there was another rise, like a double rise with an enriched flour, I would definitely use active dry. But your recipe will tell you what to do. Give this a stir. And now we're gonna add our 180 grams of all-purpose flour right into the bowl. Now it's time to add 5 tablespoons or 71 grams of softened butter. So our buttery dinner rolls are so buttery because of butter. What else would it be? I'm just gonna plop these in like 1 tablespoon at a time. Perfect. The other thing that will soften our dinner rolls is sugar. Sugar really gives you a softer texture, as you'll know from delicious things like muffins and cake. So 3 tablespoons will do just nicely. Your dinner rolls aren't gonna be super sweet. They'll be slightly sweet, but very soft. 1 egg for a little bit of richness. No shells. I'm also adding 1 teaspoon of salt. It gives us some nice contrast. You cannot taste anything without a little bit of salt. Ask your mother. My mom would tell you. Pop your paddle on, and we're gonna mix this on medium-low for about a minute until everything is nice and combined. By the way, if you like my videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button. There's 2 new recipes every single week and shorts too. And in case you didn't know, right now we're using the paddle attachment to incorporate all the wet ingredients in. A lot of times when you have a rich yeasted dough, it's a good idea to make a slurry with part of the flour and either whisk it together by hand or use your stand mixer and a paddle attachment. But then once all the flour goes in, you want to use either your hands to knead it, which takes a while and is messy, or a dough hook. Beautiful texture. Look at that. Look at that. It looks nothing like the end product, but it's nice and mixed. Now we're gonna add the remaining 1 3/4 cups or 210 grams of all-purpose flour right into our bowl. Grab your hook attachment and plop that on. We're gonna run our mixer on medium for about 2 minutes until it all pulls together. It's been about 2 minutes, but this isn't pulling away from the sides the way I want. With your clean hand, if you touch the dough and it sticks to your finger, it is too sticky and you need more flour. The solution is just to add as little flour as possible until your dough is usable. I'm gonna start with 1 tablespoon and slowly add a second one in and see how that looks. I'm even gonna scrape the bowl down just to make sure that additional flour is mixing in evenly. Flour is the main ingredient, but it's also your worst enemy because you have to add the precise amount. If there's too much, it'll just be disappointing, and that goes for any recipe that uses flour. You always want to use the bare minimum to have the correct structure. So here, our test is really simple. If it sticks to my finger, as opposed to just being tacky or slightly sticky, then it's too wet. If it's slightly sticky, it's just right. I'm gonna let that mix in for about a minute, and then we're gonna test again. Let's take a look. And I want to point out one thing. That's perfect. Look, that was just 2 tablespoons of flour and it made all the difference. It's totally tacky, but it's not sticking to my clean finger. Now that we have the correct amount of flour, I'm going to continue mixing for about 2 minutes until the dough balls up around the hook. This is where you're developing some structure. So if you have all the time in the world, or some children who need to work some energy off with clean hands, they could knead the dough until it's the correct consistency, or just let your mixer do the job. I will say that kneading dough is very relaxing and meditative, so I highly recommend. But if you're in a hurry, the machine can do all the work for you. After about 2 minutes of mixing, my dough has developed a lot more structure, so it's time to transfer this into an oiled bowl, or it's time to add your favorites. So you could add fresh herbs like rosemary or thyme. You could add some cheese, roasted garlic. The list goes on. For any kind of an herb, I would say 2 to 3 tablespoons, totally up to you. And for the cheese and garlic, oh my God, add up to a head of garlic in my opinion, or a couple of cloves. For the cheese, about a 1/4 cup. Nice. Much more structure. Now we're gonna transfer this to our oiled bowl. Clear is best, just so you can see the rise a bit better, and you don't need tons of oil, just work it up the side. Transfer your dough into your oiled bowl, and this is gonna rise in a nice cozy place for 45 minutes to an hour, or until it's doubled in size. The rise time is really affected by the temperature, so if it's in a cold place, it'll take much longer. I'm just gonna turn the dough over a couple times so it's all oiled. We're also gonna cover this with a bonnet or a slightly damp cloth. And now it can go into your nice cozy place. I have a warming drawer, but you could also use your oven with either the light turned on, or you could preheat it to 100 degrees and then turn it off and pop this in. So after a bit more than an hour, my dough has risen and doubled in size. It does take longer just because there is butter in here, and that really weighs the dough down. The yeast has to fight extra hard, but it's worth it. Right now we're gonna punch the dough down, satisfying, lightly flour our surface, and turn the dough out. So now we're gonna divide the dough into 15 equal pieces. They should be about 55 grams each. You can eyeball it, you could use your scale, it's up to you. You just want them to be like an equal size and bake evenly. If one's tiny, it's gonna really stick out and it might be a bit overbaked compared to the larger ones. 56 grams, that's great, I'm so proud of myself. 69 grams, less proud. So we're gonna continue this process until we have all the dough portioned out. If you have kids at home, this is a great chance to use some math if you're using the scale. So you're trying to get as close as possible to 55, let's say. So you can talk about estimation and accuracy, being within 5 grams. I don't know if anyone would do this, but I would totally do this with my kids. Sorry, boys. You have your blobs of dough. These are not dinner rolls, they're weird blobs. To make them beautiful dinner rolls, just take the edges and pinch them in like that. And now put them on your counter, floured side up, make a circle with your thumb and middle finger, and roll in a tight circle, and you'll have a beautiful, perfect little dinner roll. We're doing this to give the dough a beautiful look and some structure too. When they bake up, they'll rise up and be beautiful little domes. If you didn't do this step and you just pop these into a pan, they would kind of fall flat. And once again, you'd be disappointed. No, you want to be proud of your work. So pinch and roll it out. Now the top has some nice surface tension to kind of hold it all together. Towards the end of my rise time, I buttered my 9x13-inch pan. You could also use baking spray if that's preferable. Place your ball right into your buttered baking dish. I have to mention something about the bakeware. Just like when you're making a pie, like I always like to use a metal tin to make a pie because you get a crisper crust. Here, it's kind of the opposite. You want to have a ceramic or glass baking dish so that you can have a soft, pillowy dinner roll. If you use a metal baking dish, it'll be a bit crustier, which some people like, so up to you. My last note for this whole process is just to make sure that you're rolling your dinner roll out without any flour on the countertop. The flour was just for earlier. Now I want a clean countertop so that nothing is sliding around. Place your dinner rolls in rows of 3, spaced slightly so they have a bit more room to grow. I'm gonna cover this up now. You could use a damp cloth or plastic wrap. We're gonna let them rise until they're about doubled in size, 30 to 45 minutes or so. And in the meantime, towards the end of that rise, make sure you heat your oven up to 350 so it is ready to accept your delicious dinner rolls. But by the way, if you wanted to make these ahead of time, this could get popped into the fridge now for an overnight roll. And then when you're ready to make them the next day, take them out, let them grow, and bake them. My dinner rolls have puffed and they've doubled in size, so now they're ready to go into the oven, 350 for about 20 minutes until they're a deep golden color, and then they get a final finishing touch. In you go. The moment these come out of the oven, brush with about 2 tablespoons or so of butter. This will give you a lovely shine and some wonderful added richness. Sprinkle of added salt is optional, but delicious. Allow to cool slightly, and just like that, they're ready to enjoy. Pillowy soft, buttery, and delicious. I hope you get a chance to make this recipe, and if you like my videos, hit that subscribe button and check out my bread playlist.